Joining me now from Jerusalem is Alex Traiman, award-winning filmmaker and CEO of the Jewish News Syndicate. As we watch on our screen the latest barrage of missile strikes in Gaza, what more are you hearing about what's happening on the ground?
Well, the Israeli Air Force has started massive barrages on Hamas strongholds inside the Gaza Strip. There was a major attack on a neighborhood called Al Furqan. Earlier today, the Israeli Air Force has also bombed the Rafah land crossing between Gaza and Egypt, which was the last remaining open crossing between Gaza and the outside world. The defense minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, pledged yesterday to place a complete and total siege on Gaza, shutting off electricity, fuel, and even potentially food supplies. So it is very clear that the Israeli defense is retaliating in an unprecedented way following the massive massacres which took place on Saturday morning. And the question is when and if Israel will launch a ground operation. Masses of forces are being arranged along the Gazan border. Israel just authorized the call-up of an additional 360,000 reserves, doubling the amount of reserves that were called up from earlier in the week. And so I think it's a question of not if, but when a ground incursion might begin.
And what are you hearing on that front? I mean, just to comprehend, 360,000 called up. Any sense on the timing?
Well, it's important to note also that among these reserves, also many of them, and potentially even more of them, are being diverted to Israel's north because Israel is very worried about the opening of a potential second front with Hezbollah. I think it's a matter of days before Israel will enter into the Gaza Strip. They want to make sure they have all their ducks in a row, all the battle plans laid out and communicated to all the soldiers. Right now, time is with the Israeli military. They'll go when they're ready, and it's a question of if Hezbollah is going to get itself involved, if there's going to be a second front, and when that might happen.
And there is some suggestion that Hamas was trying to draw Israel in, that they anticipated this type of response, and that's what they wanted. How is Israel preparing for that? And in what was an unprecedented surprise, but very strategic attack on Saturday?
Well, you're correct. The fact that Hamas has taken over 100 Israeli hostages into the Gaza Strip is basically all but invited the IDF to come in a massive ground incursion. And what that looks like, where the hostages are being hidden, whether they're being hidden inside of the massive tunnel infrastructure that Hamas has invested billions of dollars over the years into building deep underground, likely highly booby-trapped. We're waiting to see if Israeli intelligence has information first on how many hostages are alive, because we don't know how many have been killed or how many are still alive, and where they might be hiding, and how the Israeli military can possibly get to them, if they will even risk trying to get to them at this point.
As we look at the explosions on our screen, there's another one right there. What exactly are we seeing? What is in this particular area of the Gaza Strip?
Well, it's important to note that the Gaza Strip is a small coastal enclave to the southwest corner of Israel. It's only about 2 miles deep and about 10 to 15 miles long. It looks there in the pictures. This is the first time I'm seeing them as well, but it looks like there is a bombing of either a boat. Looks like that's the port, the Gaza port over there. It's important to note that Hamas tried a sea invasion as well on Saturday, so they definitely have infrastructure along the port. There's also a power plant near the sea, which provides electricity to Gaza, so it's possible that the military might be striking that as well.
And Alex, we know, as small as the Gaza Strip is, it is one of the most heavily, densely populated areas of the world, 2.5 million people. The Palestinians who are there, who are fearing from airstrikes coming from above, are there evacuations taking place? Where are these people going, and where are they taking shelter? What do you hear?
Well, the IDF has been telling people to move out of specific neighborhoods. And early this morning, one of the generals of the IDF had told Gazans to leave via the Rafah crossing to Egypt, and only to bomb the crossing several hours later and rescinding its instructions. So right now, there's really no place for the Gazans to go. They can get out of the way. I mean, the military is highly strategic. They don't just bomb randomly like Hamas terrorists who just shoot gratuitously at civilians. They are trying to hit specific targets that they have deemed to be military targets. That said, a lot of those targets are in civilian buildings. A lot of those targets could be, in mosques where the IDF deems there are weapons caches being hidden, and other places. Hamas often is hiding behind civilians and hides its weaponry in mosques, hospitals, schools, and elsewhere. But if the IDF determines that something is a target, they will strike with precision, and they will also alert citizens to get out of the way before that happens.
And there is fear that Hamas will use humans as shields in an imminent attack from any direction. What more are we hearing from Hamas, although we have to be careful what they are sharing at this point?
Right, exactly. You're correct that Hamas often uses human shields and fires specifically from civilian centers. At this point, if you could believe it, their goal might be to dramatically increase the number of casualties inside Gaza itself in order to try to get as much international pressure on Israel to stop its barrage, to stop before it completes its goals. So that's really all that Hamas has to do right now. They can no longer infiltrate the border. That border is as heavily sealed as it's ever been, with, as we said before, hundreds of thousands of soldiers on the outside of that border. They still are firing rockets. There have been massive barrages just in the last several minutes towards Tel Aviv, and specifically toward the coastal city of Ashkelon, which is just a couple miles north of the Gaza Strip. So, they're using the tools that they have, but they have limited tools and they have limited options in terms of where to go.
And the Iron Dome has incredible military capability. It can move and shift as necessary to defend Israel and those around Tel Aviv. Are we still seeing explosions from above and interceptions of missiles that are incoming?
Yeah, just in the last several minutes, massive barrages of weapons. The Iron Dome shoots these Qassam rockets out of the sky with 90 to 95% precision. But when you're talking about over 10,000 rockets fired at Israeli population centers, if there's 90% interception rate, that means that some of these weapons are going to get through. And there have been direct hits today and in the past several days, also on an Israeli hospital in Ashkelon, in Bnei Brak, in Sderot, and even near Tel Aviv just earlier today.
Alex Traiman, thank you for your time and for your reporting. Please be safe. We'll continue to check in with you.
Thank you so much.